All right, so thanks everybody for coming. I'm just curious, is everybody taking classes for the summer? Everybody that's here taking classes for the summer? No. You're not, okay. So you and I are in the same boat then. In addition to working at ComDev, I've been working on a master's degree part-time for the last few years. And when the summer comes, I'm always happy because I take a course in the fall and I take a course in the winter. And then I finally get a break in the summer, so it's kind of like, now's my sort of break time, so it's good. Most of you guys are too hardcore for taking breaks, so. So anyway, thanks a lot for inviting me to come. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our mission development group at ComDev, which is located in Cambridge. Some of the work we've been doing on microsatellite missions over the last, well, about 5 years or so, I guess. So I'll start by giving you kind of a real quick view of ComDev in general and the division that the Mission Development Group is a part of, which is ComDev Canada. Sort of show you how that all sort of fits in, and then I'll give you some details about the Mission Development Group itself. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with ComDev as a company, but we were established in 1974 in Montreal. In 1980, the company moved its operations to Cambridge. One of the main reasons why that decision was made was the proximity of the universities and colleges in the area, because the company realized it was going to need, to be able to grow and be successful, we were going to need access to young new graduates from universities and colleges. So this is a really good area for that. So that was one of the main draws to bring the company to Cambridge. We're a publicly traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol CDV, so if you're ever interested in seeing what's happening with our stock price, you can look us up. In 2010, our revenues were $221 million. We have about 1,200 employees across 4 locations worldwide. Cambridge and Ottawa in Canada. In Cambridge we actually have 2 buildings, but it's considered one location. And then we also have a facility in the UK and one in California as well, in the Los Angeles area. A bunch of patents there. So R&D is a big focus of ComDev technology development, and so that's where the patents come from. And we have equipment on board over 800 satellites currently in orbit. There's at least one piece of ComDev hardware on almost every satellite that gets launched today, so kind of a neat step. And we've participated in programs in planetary exploration, Earth orbit, life sciences, astronomy, and commercial space. So I'll talk a little bit about all those areas. There's 4 main operating divisions of ComDev. The ComDev International Products division is sort of the bread and butter commercial division of the company. That's where we do our multiplexers and filters and switches that we sell to a lot of the prime contractors that are building satellites for the big telecom operators like Telesat Canada, Intelsat, Inmarsat, and there's lots of others. So that's the largest portion of our business. Then we have a division we call ComDev Canada, and that is primarily aimed at Canadian civil and military government contracts. So that would be contracts with the Canadian Space Agency, with the Department of National Defense, and also then we look at areas where we can sort of apply that technology and those products that are developed under ComDev Canada to international as well, international contracts. ComDev USA is focused primarily on the US civil and military space market. It's a huge, huge market, bigger than all the other world markets put together by a long shot in space. So that division was established a few years ago to be able to take advantage of that market. When you're a non-US company, you have very limited access to the US market. So we established ComDev USA. It's actually a separate standalone subsidiary company with its own board of directors in the US that has to be done that way to be able to access those US government contracts. And then ComDev Europe, which is focused primarily on the European space market, particularly ESA and things like that. And they also contribute some products into the other divisions too. So this is kind of a look at some of our different product areas that we have across the company. Multiplexers and filters and switches are by far the largest. That's the ComDev International Products area. We've done quite a bit of work in electronics as well. Did some work in antennas and continued to do a little bit of that. We were doing a lot of work in antennas in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. We supplied all of the antennas for the Iridium constellation. So 10 antennas on each of, I think they built 70-some satellites, 66 in the operational constellation plus spares. So we built a lot of antennas in the late 90s. Still do a few now, although not on a volume production basis like that. Processors and other subsystems for satellites, both commercial satellites as well as civil satellites. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of those. Scientific instruments as well for certain science missions, and in general just complete payloads. So the ComDev Canada division is kind of where I'm going to focus on for the next few minutes here. That's headquartered in Ottawa. It's actually in Canada on Terry Fox Drive. You can see the building there. ComDev Canada, like I said, is focused primarily on the Canadian civil and military space market. Some of the specialties of this division are things like optical instruments, microsatellite missions, and low data rate communication payloads. We have another arm of that division in Cambridge, and they're doing complementary work and also working together with the Ottawa division on certain things. So here's some of the things that ComDev Canada has sort of specialized in. Done some search and rescue work, some space situational awareness, exploration type work, imagers, science instruments, environmental detectors, and defined guidance sensors. So we have quite a large amount of specialized facilities for space hardware integration and testing across all of our locations. A lot of different clean room type labs, so all of our hardware is typically built in a clean room. We have varying different degrees of cleanliness depending on what kind of hardware is being built there. Ability to test all of our equipment in various types of environmental tests. So those would include thermal and thermal vacuum to simulate the space environment, as well as vibration and shock to simulate the launch environment that the equipment has to survive. Other types of optical and infrared and those types of specialized test setups for the instruments that we design and build. And of course, just in general, the ability to build, test, and measure everything that we need to do. So machine shop capabilities, specialized fabrication, that kind of thing. So one of the big projects right now that ComDev Canada, and this is the Ottawa division primarily, although Cambridge was involved at one point as well, but our ComDev Canada Ottawa division is the prime contractor for Canada's contribution to the James Webb Space Telescope, which is the follow-on to Hubble. So Canada is contributing something called the Fine Guidance Sensor. And it's actually a pretty small component of the overall telescope size-wise. In fact, I don't have a pointer with